Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's August 14th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And there was a huge sell-off today. Um, we started off with a steep two-tiered channel. In the end, this is a spiking channel. Notice how we spiked down, and then we went into this somewhat flatter channel that's more of a 45-degree angle. That's a much more healthier trend. This is just too strong of a sell-off. Um, There's a lot of trades in here, really right from the get-go on all day long. There's lots of trades. Um, this probably looks a little confusing right here. Just to explain what I did here. Earlier on, I had a smaller two-tiered channel here, but we kept overshooting that, leading me to believe that, hey, there's probably a bigger pattern there. And the brown channel didn't really help you, but I put it on here temporarily just so you can see it. Um, you can tell that right through. Let me just make this a little darker for the moment, just to make it a little easier for everybody to see it. It's kind of hard to see. There you can see it a little better, and you can see that there's clearly a two-tiered bigger channel than what we were looking at earlier. Um, it didn't change this trend line up here. It's the exact same trend line. You can see the blue trend line underneath there. So that was, in the end, it was really a bigger two-tiered channel, and the trend channel was way down here. We only touched it once, so the brown channel didn't necessarily help you a whole lot. So it didn't really matter how you saw it. If you saw the blue one that I saw earlier, or at some point you realize that, hey, we keep overshooting this thing. When that continues to happen and prices don't reverse, well, generally that means that there's probably a bigger pattern there, and that was the case here. You still had all these shorter term trends in here that you were trading, so it didn't really change a whole lot. So I'm going to take this brown one off, but I did just want to point that out to everybody. So you can see without the brown one, there's the original tighter two-tiered channel, but notice how we just kept overshooting it. And what it was, I think there was a bigger pattern there that you just couldn't find until we got a little more price action. So again, there's lots of trades here. You probably could argue for a few more. A couple of these might have looked better on your chart than mine as well. I just marked the very obvious ones that meet the rules. I mean, there's just so many to pick from. I mean, there's 15 trades here probably, so it's going to take me a few minutes to go through this, and I will move through them rather quickly. This is a downtrend, so every time prices came back to any of these key entry points, if you get a setup, you just about have to take it. And lots of trades here. Right in here was there was a little stretch in here. I don't think it's very wise to try to buy here. Um, so I wouldn't be wanting to buy. You don't see any buys on here all day long, really. So it's not a day you want to be buying. You're better off to wait for prices to come back and find you a nice short to the downside, and hope you catch a runner, and you probably could catch several runners today. And I did want to mention, somebody always brings it up, when it gets real volatile like this, the size of the signal bars. Um, Unfortunately, that's just part of trading. When it gets really volatile like this, the signal bars are going to be bigger, and there's just not anything you can do about it. There's a couple of ways around that. Still try to stay within the 2-point rule. One is you skip the trade, but if you do that, you're going to miss some very good trades. The other option is let the bar next to the signal bar create the break, and don't have a sell stop in there to the low side below your signal bar. Just let the break happen and then drop a limit order further back to give you enough room to stay in the 2-point rule and put your stop above the signal bar, and hope prices will back up and fill you. But on the best trades they won't. It just takes off, and you're going to miss the best trades doing that. But that's an option you can try rather than just skipping the trade. That would be my first and my second options. Either skip the trade or try to get in like I just discussed and things not be so volatile. And then the third option is go ahead and put your stop where it belongs, put your entry stop below the signal bar. Don't worry about the size of the signal bar. And then whatever the difference is that you're having to make up there, let's say you're having to add an extra, say the bar's 3 points rather than 2, and you have to add an extra 6 ticks above what you would normally have. Add that 6 ticks to your profit, or maybe even add a little more. You might try to catch more of a swing trade on days like this, because you can see it doesn't look like prices are moving very forward. These are really big moves. Each time prices come back to some of these key entry points, these are huge moves. They just don't look like it because there's so much volatility. I mean, it's 20 points from here to here. That's a huge move. So it's relatively easy to get, instead of just getting a scalp, you might get 3, 4, 5 points out of every move. So that's really how you're going to combat the issue of the large signal bars. And there's just really not much way around it other than not trading. I mean, you may, if you're trying to trade live and you're not real good yet and you hadn't been doing this a while and you don't have a lot of experience with a real volatile market, then maybe you just sim trade, just practice trade, and don't risk your money till you feel more comfortable with it. I mean, that's what I always try to tell people, is that sometimes the best trade is no trade. I mean, there's nothing wrong with no trade, and you may watch prices go a long way here and not get a good entry, but if you didn't enter, if you followed the rules and you didn't have an entry and you didn't enter and prices still went 20 points lower without checking up, you still did the right thing, because prices won't always do that. The next 10 times you try to enter on a move like that, you'll get stopped out every time. So just keep that in mind. I mean, the market will do unusual things, and all that'll do is lull you to sleep and sucker you in, and then the next thing you know, you're getting a bunch of losers. And you say, well, it worked before, but it doesn't matter. There will always be big moves and nice moves that just pop out of nowhere. It's just part of the markets and the way they move. So don't get suckered in. But anyway, I've already spent about 7 minutes here, and then we haven't even started talking about the trades, and there's a lot of them here. So I'm going to back out. You can see this spike down, and then we go into this two-tiered channel, and really there was the bigger brown channel. I took it off just because I didn't want the chart to be too cluttered. It doesn't change anything. The main trend line's here, and you still have all your shorter term trend lines in there you're going to be playing off of. So let me back out where it's a little easier to see. And again, there may be other trades here that, sorry, I had a small interruption, but yes, there may be other trades here that are still halfway decent trades that I didn't mark, because there's just so many that you might as well wait on the best trades, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, and there could be some that look a little, when you get this big of a chart, this much movement, this much volume and volatility, there may be some trades that look a little better on your chart than mine, and some that look a little better on mine. But there's still so many trades here. There's just no reason to take a questionable trade, basically. So anyway, first trade I saw today was right at the 7 o'clock hour, just a few minutes into it. Notice there's a perfect second entry short with a nice signal bar right off the EMA. There's basically a double top. There's really a double test. You made that high, you tested it once, you tested it twice. There's no line across there, but there's a double test there. There's a second entry short. It's a bearish bar. It's right off the EMA. Generally, I'd want to wait for this to come back to the midline or the original trend line, but this, look how strong that sell-off is. Just take that second entry. I don't see any other way around it. And then you get another second entry short here. Your signal bar is not that great. However, notice that's a new high. So you get a first entry and a second entry. So there's a failed second entry long there as well. It's 2 legs back to the midline. So it's a second entry short. There's really, you could count that as a double test of that little pullback right there. Notice how we traded up, and then we went lower, and then we traded back up and tested it, and we traded back up and tested it again. So there's several different reasons to like that one. I marked it green because the signal bar is not perfect, but if you saw all those other reasons, just take that trade. Then you get another second entry short right here, same thing, right off all those highs. There's strong resistance across there. Another second entry short, and this actually went higher and turned and goes right here. Just go short right there. Down it goes. And you get another second entry short right here. Notice that's the first real close outside of that trend line. We're not quite back to the EMA, which normally that would or the midline, but we haven't got back down to the lower side either. So we're kind of in the middle there. So with a second entry short with plenty of room to scalp out on a trend that's this strong, just take it. There's actually a failed second entry long right there as well. And there's still a little bit of room there, but I'd probably, when it didn't go lower right there and it still kind of continued to go sideways, I'd probably sit tight. And you can see it wasn't long till we rallied back up. And notice prices are almost always come back and test these breakouts. And notice it came back and tested it to the tick right there. You do get a lower high right here. That's another possibility. I didn't mark it because it looks like we're bouncing off the midline and we could be going higher right there. So it could be a trap. And it really was a little bit of a short trap, although as big as these bars are, you could have scalped out before it rallied. I just didn't mark it. It's just, you're better off to wait. Prices have really been trading way down, and we're overdue to come back to the trend line. And you can see we come back here. Notice there's a little trend line working up. You get a close outside, move to a new high. Normally I'd tell you to wait on a lower high, but this is right off the trend line and you're a good bit away from the EMA right there. And this is a strong downtrend and that's a relatively bearish bar. So you may take that one. I marked it green. You're almost always better to wait on the lower high. So you might have been better off to wait here on this short right here. Again, right off the key entry point. And look at it go again. And again, there's a failed second entry long here, but you're right into these lows. I think that's a little too risky. Again, it would have worked. Same thing here. There's another second entry short right there. Notice this new low, first entry, second entry. That's right off the key entry point, everything, although that is not really the signal bar. This big green bar is, and that's kind of an inside bar. So again, I didn't mark it, although that's another one that you could argue for that, in this downtrend, you probably ought to take it. It was an easy scalp and a little bit more, but you see it did bounce, and that's the danger of those. But the problem is, or the I guess the benefit on a day like this is the bars are so big that it's so easy to get 4 ticks. You might consider it. So again, we move up, we come right off the key entry point again. There's your lower high. It breaks higher, turns, and goes out the other side. Just go short there. And again, it bounces. There's a lower high there. Again, it's the same thing. We tend to be making higher highs and higher lows, so I'd kind of wait. And again, you probably got enough to scalp out there. But you can see here, this was a fairly bearish bar, and you'd have got burned on that one. So you're just better off to wait. And finally, you make a new high here and start trading lower, and you don't get a lower high to way down here, and I wouldn't risk that one. You've moved way too far. Just wait and see if you don't get a second entry here pretty quickly. That's another one that you could argue to be green. I didn't mark it because you could have argued for that one to be green and you'd have got burned. I mean, you could have argued for several of these, but I mean, the trend line is now played out, so this has probably got less of a risk because now you got a break and a couple of legs up, and then you got that last little jog up that sometimes, and look how far away you are from the EMA. So you may risk that one. But you run down, you make this new low, and then first entry, and then there's just second entry short right off the EMA. Relatively bearish bar, another quick easy move. Then we're just kind of going up and down right here. I don't see anything I really like until it comes back up here, and it makes a new high right here, but that's a really big bar. No break of that trend line yet. It's bouncing right off that trend line, but then it comes on down. You get a first entry right there, and then you get a second entry, and it fails, and notice how we tried to go back through that trend line twice. I like entering there. There's plenty of room to get out in case it bounces across that support again, but it doesn't this time. It pushes on through. There's even a breakout pullback short there, but I'm not crazy about that one because you got to go short at the very low of the day. So I'd skip that one. But again, it's one you could argue for. I mean, you could say that's green for sure, but I just didn't mark it. There's just too many good trades here. Then you come back, same thing here. There's a lower high, but it's right into this low, the low of the day. And again, it would have worked. You could really uh, call that a second entry short too, because it did go higher. It didn't break higher, but then it turns and goes lower. So that's another one you could argue to be green. And then I finally did mark this one because it comes back to the trend line, the shorter term trend line, and confirms it. And it actually breaks higher, turns and goes out the other side. Just go short right there. And look at that thing go. I mean, one bar. I don't think I would wait and go short under this bar. The way you have to play this is when it broke higher and it turns real quickly and starts going the other way. That's a second entry short when it breaks lower right there. And it is right off a key entry point. So just put your sell stop right there. Again, I wouldn't wait till way down here because it's just such a big bar and you're going short right into the lows. It wouldn't have mattered, but you don't know that ahead of time. Then it comes back, first entry, and then another second entry right off the EMA, right off that short-term trend line, right off the midline we were looking at on this channel. Big bearish bar, great place to go short. Then it comes back again and gives you a failure on a failed second entry short. Again, it breaks higher and turns and comes down. It doesn't go out the other side. It ends up making a little matching double bottom, but with that being off the key entry point, off the EMA, and a second entry short with a big bearish signal bar, I'm going to take that one anyway. And you'd probably got a runner there. Boom. And it's off to the races again. And then we bounce again. You actually get a close outside this short-term trend line. It looks like we're maybe getting an overshoot of this two-tier channel, as I talked about earlier. And you get a big bearish second entry here, but it never triggers. Notice that this bar can't get below it, and we bounce, and we just kind of keep going higher. And finally, you get a close outside and a new high. I don't like entering right there, though, on that high. I think you got to wait on the lower high here, which comes right here. Again, another bearish bar. This one does gap over that EMA. You may not have been able to get in that trade. It did trade down and back up again, so you might have got in it with a limit order, and then it drops on down. Then it comes back and gives you a confirmation of this trend line and a failed second entry long and another bearish bar. And so you could go short again, and look how it drops down real fast. And it actually comes back again here. If it would have broke higher again there, I might have said, hey, jump in. And you still could jump in there because it's a second entry. But I'm not as crazy about that one. But it's another one you could argue for. And then you could actually argue for this to be another good entry too. But it's just right into that low, and there's multiple lows across there. And it's a huge signal bar. I'd wait. And notice if you wait, then you get a first entry and a second entry and a big bearish bar. I mean, normally I'd probably tell you to skip this trade, but this has just been a huge downtrend, and it's a second entry off a key entry point. Just take it. I mean, you know, it's worth risking. It doesn't continue lower, but it does give you a quick scalp. It actually breaks higher and gives you a failed second entry long there. And again, it would have worked, but I don't think you want to take a failure right there with all those matching lows. By that time you got a triple bottom there. So again, it bounces. You get a second entry here, but not a very good setup. And then you get a little two-legged correction, and then that's probably the middle of your pattern. So you know that's basically two legs back to the EMA again. First entry, and then it tries to go higher and fails and turns and comes out. Gives you a second entry short right there. Gives you a failed second entry long right there. I marked it green because there's, you know, it looks like we're getting these overshoots and stuff, and so it's a little bit, I was a little bit hesitant of it. But again, it takes off. That's a huge move, and you would have had a runner. And then this is where it was a little bit iffy in here because, you know, we're trending back up, and I just don't think you want to take any longs here. I don't care how good they look, even if there were traps. This was a nice big bearish bar right off the key entry point again, but you got this short-term trend line working up through there. You don't really have a close outside of it till here, so you may push up for a new high, which is exactly what happens. You get a lower high here, but not a very good signal bar, and then you get a failed second entry long, and then it turns down. You could go short one tick below that bar, or you could, even here, I just one tick below that, or you may let it break lower and drop your limit order back up here where it would have been, and you would have gotten filled on that bar. Either way, that's a trap right there, a little failed, and you're ways away from the EMA, way overdue to come back, because you've been away from it since way down here. And you actually get another little trap right here that I would not have been afraid to take. I didn't mark it because there's too much congestion there, but even here you come back and get another little breakout pullback, and it actually goes higher and turns and goes out the other side. That one, you may actually take that one, and I don't have a problem marking that one. I probably should have marked it before, but and notice that little congestion, and you break out, you pull back and test it, and then boom, off it goes. And then guess what? You come back first entry and another second entry short with a big bullish bar. Take it. Boom. And then a first entry long and then a second entry long and a big bearish bar. Again, right off that short-term key entry point. Another big move down. And then we bounce here, first entry, and there's actually a second entry short right there. Way too bullish of a bar. It did break higher and turn and go down, but I'd be a little leery entering that one back above the EMA like that. And notice we actually tick up again and do the same thing, and you actually get a second entry short right there. This is right at the 2 o'clock hour. That one's one you might consider, but again, I didn't mark it. It's so close to 2 o'clock, and it looks like we're making higher highs and higher lows here again, and we didn't get to the lower side here before we came back. So that's telling you we're starting to maybe get a little strength, and then we really tried to rally out there and couldn't, and almost really just went flat through the rest of the day. That's all up to 2 o'clock. So many trades today, and again, like I said, there's a lot of them in there that on your chart might have been a little better and you could have taken them, and some of mine may not have looked good enough on yours to take, and there's others you could argue for in there. There's just so many trades. I mean, these are the kind of days you want to see when you're day trading. You just wait for prices to come back and give you a second entry short at a key entry point. It's pretty much that easy. And they're scattered all through here today, and just take them and try to take a run or two, especially if it's off these main key entry points. So, yeah, great trading day. Big sell-off today. Will it continue tomorrow, or will we get another bounce? Usually when we get one of these big sell-offs, we get a big bounce pretty soon thereafter. This market just doesn't know what it wants to do right now, but it is definitely volatile, definitely a lot of movement. You definitely have to change your entries a little bit, as we talked about earlier, so keep that in mind. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. It's been a long day. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you.